Um, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Clyde Tabor. I am with the Visual Story Network, and I am here in Southern California. And one of the things that I get to do is help facilitate communities like this one. And this is the Mission ARVR community. And there are a core of us that kind of give thought leadership and to that. And that's myself, and that's DJ Soto, who you'll be hearing shortly, and L.Michelle Salvant, and Dr. Jonathan Woodward, or Armstrong rather, and Anna McCoy. So anyway, there's a handful of us that are kind of helping put people together. And part of our desire in inviting people to make or have experiences in this space is because this is a technology that will increasingly change the way people think, do business, connect, communicate, and even have spiritual kind of opportunities to grow. And so we just want to be an encouragement to help people, especially the followers of Jesus, lean into that and figure out how that can work. So you're going to be hearing today from two people primarily. DJ Soto is a pastor who's been a pastor of a traditional church. And then God sent him in an interesting direction a few years ago as an apostle in the world of virtual reality. So he started VR Church, which is the world's first virtual reality church. He's the owner of Sonata 7 Studios, the film production and virtual reality company. Lakeisha Michelle Salvant, L.Michelle, is a media maven who founded L.Michelle Media Company. It's focused on helping Christian faith and educational organizations find innovative ways to use media to move you forward. And today we're addressing, and this is like our third event or so, today we're kind of just doing some very introductory kind of ideas on how do you get started in this world of virtual reality. So we're having two angles. We're going to have DJ talk about this more of a technology perspective. What are some technology options? What's coming in this space, and why should you pay attention to this space? And then L.Michelle is going to be talking a little bit more about this ministry application perspective. How should we think about that in a ministry context? And in particular, going to be offering some case studies. So I believe that's all you need from me. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, DJ. So if you, again, let me just do a little mini summary. If you're in Zoom, you'll be seeing what DJ is seeing inside of VR, and we'll be looking at a screen in this meeting space. If you are in Zoom, be sure to mute yourself. And then for chats, you can use the chat box for putting comments and questions. We'll have ample time for that. Each presenter will go for about 12 to 14 minutes or so. And then we want to have a little meet and greet at the end. So put your comments or questions in the chat box if you're in Zoom, or when we get to the Q&A portion, feel free to ask questions. So there you go. DJ, take it away. I'm going into VR now to join you guys.
You're going into the metaverse. Okay, can you hear me, L, in VR? Just want to do a double check on the sound check. Okay, good. And everyone can hear me on Zoom, I presume. All right, good. Just a couple of things. I'm going to present from over here. So I probably won't present from the front of the room. I just want to give people in Zoom a nice view of the screen. But, we thought it was important to talk about how to get started in VR. So many of us that have been involved in virtual reality, I've probably made up a lot of assumptions that people know what it is, how to get involved in it. We've been doing this for a couple of years, so it's normal to me. So one example of that is I was presenting to a group of pastors. There's about 50, 60 pastors. I was talking about virtual reality. I was showing pictures and images and videos. And then someone raised their hand and said, so is VR like a Zoom call? And after like 40 minutes, I felt this sinking feeling like, oh, okay, I didn't communicate, or I don't know. Maybe I'm assuming people know what VR is. And so we wanted to start at the beginning, even though we've had a couple of events. We wanted to just really make it simple to understand how to get started. So for those of you that already have VR headsets, you're already involved in VR, this might be kind of an elementary thing. But maybe for some of you, you've never heard of it. And then Elle, if you don't mind real quick, I'm getting some feedback, maybe hitting like mute on your thing. And then that would
I just muted myself too in VR. Maybe it was me.
Oh yeah, or maybe it was Clyde, somebody. But Yeah, so yeah, let's talk about how to get started in virtual reality. I think that's an important topic. But yeah, I still hear that feedback, I think, coming from L. I think maybe. Oh, you're good. I'll just keep rolling. Um, so here's a question that I think is important: is why does VR matter? So some people are asking me, is VR a fad? Is it something that's just going to come and go? And that's a great question, because it feels like in this digital world we're just inundated with so many things. There's a little bit of digital fatigue, like sign up for this platform and this digital subscription, and there's like a ton of things to get involved in the digital sphere. And so now, we have our website for our business or organization. We have social media. Maybe we have online streaming of some type. And then now we're hearing about VR and AR, and it's like, oh man, there's something else. I thought we were done. But as things are going, no, there's something we believe big coming on the horizon. There's billions of dollars being spent that we haven't seen its full fruition into the physical world. And so we're in the early stages of what virtual reality is all about. Some people might say, well, VR has been around since the 60s or the 80s, and that's true to some degree, but not in the sense of like a consumer level where you can go into Best Buy and pick up some virtual reality. This is a new thing within the past couple of years. And what people have been saying, and I'm just going to move quickly so we can get through this and answer questions later, but people are talking about VR being the fourth computing paradigm. And so let me talk about what that means. So some people say the first one was maybe like, hold on, let me just do a little, oh, I can't mute Al there. Al, you don't have a mute button on the bottom left? Oh, I mean in Alt space, if you don't mind hitting the mute button. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And then, yeah, so then like this would be the first, you see that on your, oops, hold on, now I gotta redo this, hold on. Do you see it on your bottom left? There's a microphone. There you go. All right, cool. Perfect.
Is that better, DJ?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
So yeah, talking about the, let's see if I can get this here. So when people talk about the first computing paradigm, they talk about, I don't know if you guys and gals have done, you remember DOS back in the day, working with that interface, dir/w, or pulling up a program with the .exe. So that was the kind of the first computing paradigm that we've had. The second one was when things became graphical and we started using a mouse. That was the second computing paradigm. And then the third one is actually big and very influential, was the smartphone era. The tablet, the smartphone, the mobile computing became a huge element in how we operate in computers and technology. And that's over the course of many years. And now we're entering the fourth paradigm of computing, and that's virtual reality and augmented reality. And so many people are saying that this is going to usher in a new era, and maybe just as impacting as the smartphone, which is hard to believe, right? Because the smartphone has been very influential, it's been a very compelling experience. We do everything on our smartphone, from banking to social to, I mean, you name it. It's all our lives, our photos, our videos, everything is on that smartphone. And VR and AR is going to be a different beast, but nonetheless, it'll still be very powerful. And the use cases are pretty astounding. Whether it's doing surgery, I heard of recently of the first surgery done for using virtual reality. Whether it's education or training or gaming or social VR, we are at the brink of some amazing ways that people are going to use virtual reality and augmented reality. So like we want to do, we just want to get real simple, and we just want to answer this question is, where do I start? Because some of you have VR and some of you don't. And here's where it gets a little confusing, because you might go to the airport, or you might be walking through a store and you'll see VR, here, come get it. And you're like, oh, that looks good. It's like 20 or 30 bucks. That's not the VR we're talking about. It probably gives you the idea and the image that you see here on the screen. That's something like that you would pick up at the airport. And it gives you the idea, but we're talking about VR at another level. And as things go, there's always going to be two of every type. So for instance, there's the Mac and PC, which one's better, right? So that's up to debate. And is Coke or Pepsi better than Xbox and PlayStation? And VR is starting to emerge in the same way, is that there's two major players. There's other ones that are doing fantastic work, so it's not limited to these two. But just for the purposes of how do I get started in VR, I do want to introduce you to the two major players in VR hardware. The first one is Oculus. And many people don't know that Oculus is actually owned by Facebook. Facebook spent like $2 to $3 billion to acquire Oculus, and they produce hardware for virtual reality. This is the headset that Clyde is wearing. He's wearing an Oculus Go. This headset that I have right here is the Oculus Rift. And we'll talk about the differences of that in just a second. The second major player is HTC, and they have the Vive series. And so which one is better? It's going to be like the Pepsi and Coke, the Apple and Mac, or PC and Mac, Xbox and PS4. It's just going to depend on what you like. They're both different, but they both deliver a very strong experience. And then there's always, you think of like Nintendo always kind of hanging around. So there's Windows mixed reality. It's kind of like a third one. I don't know that they're as big of a player as Oculus and HTC, but they're still put out great equipment. So this is just me talking. I'm a big fan of Oculus. So if somebody's like, man, just give me, what do I buy? What do I get? I gravitate towards Oculus, one, because of price, two, because of their ecosystem, like their app store is very user-friendly. But you wouldn't go wrong by doing the HTC. So I'm going to pick up the pace just because of time here. But you notice here, here are the two main headsets currently available. Actually, I should put an asterisk by that because the Rift is kind of phasing out. This has been around for about 3 years, the Oculus Rift. These are the two main headsets that Oculus has, is the Oculus Rift on the left and the Oculus Go. Well, what's the difference? The Oculus Rift on the left needs to be powered by a pretty strong computer with a good graphics card. So I have a GTX 1080 graphics card. It's VR capable. And so if you're thinking, man, I want to get into VR, the Oculus Rift is going to run about $400, but you're going to need a good computer to run it. And when you go to oculus.com, they have a system requirement. You can just go through that and check to see if your computer is compatible. The Oculus Go is a great way to get started. It's half the price at $200. You don't need a computer. You don't need a phone. You can just get right into VR. And these are two fantastic devices. Now, the Oculus Rift just went into a status of unavailability because this guy is coming out imminently here in spring of 2019, the Oculus Rift S. And people are saying this is going to be a pretty incredible system. So the Oculus Rift, like I mentioned before, you need a powerful PC to run it. So if you're looking, man, if you're saying, I want the best VR experience that is consumer in a consumer perspective that is out there, I recommend the Oculus Rift S. Check your computer specs at the oculus.com. And it is just unbelievable, the experiences that you're going to have in Oculus Rift. And something I'd say, what's the difference with the S? Well, I needed, I'm going to pull this over here so you can see it. For the Oculus Rift, I needed two of these. I have these sensors, one here on the desk, and there's another one that you can't see over here to my right. And but with the Oculus Rift S, it removes the sensors, and the sensors are actually built in to the headset. So if you can see those two little like eyeballs on the bottom left of the headset, those are the sensors. So it's becoming a very portable system. This technology is getting better form factor. They're getting less expensive, just like any other technology. You think about the first computers, you think about the first big screen TVs, $40,000 for a plasma TV. Now it's what, like $500 for the same thing. And that's the same diffusion that we're going to see with VR. Better form factor, less expensive. Now, for those of you that have a Samsung phone, there is this Gear VR option, and that is a good way to use it. Now, with all that being said, if there's one recommendation I make today, it's this next slide right here. This one is called the Oculus Quest. Many tech magazines are calling this the iPhone of VR. Like, when you think about the first smartphones that we got, and they work, but they kind of didn't, and it took maybe a couple of iterations for it to kind of work out the bugs, and now smartphones are, pretty cranking at a high level. People are talking about this in tech magazines as the iPhone of VR, at where VR kind of begins, at a level that's accessible, that's compelling. And this Oculus Quest, it doesn't need your PC, like I talked about before, no phone, no wires, and it's going to cost about $400. So the reason I say that is if you're saying, well, I'm going to go get an Oculus Go, I'm not going to get the Quest, I would highly recommend getting the Oculus Quest. The Oculus Quest is going to be an amazing system, and so this is coming out in spring of 2019. So here's another couple of images of the Oculus Quest. Form factor, lighter, higher resolution, better lenses. They call them the Fresnel lenses. Full motion with your hands. Like with the Oculus Go, you only have like up, down, and left and right. There's no 3D spacing with that. But with the Quest, you can see there's full 6 degrees of freedom. They call it 6 DoF. Now, the other major player, like I was saying before, is the Vive. Now, Vive's not a bad option. So, PC and Mac, PlayStation and Xbox, they're both great. It just depends on your preference. So I like Oculus, and that's me. I think they're a little less expensive. I think they're a little bit better made. But if you get a Vive, you're going to do really, really well. Here's some of the enterprise solutions for the Vive. And yeah, it's I've played around with both. I've owned both at one point or another, and the Vive is a great one. So you might just want to do some research to see which one you think will work. But at the end of the day, I'm really, like, when people ask me, and they do ask me all the time, what VR do I get? I said, wait until the Oculus Quest. I think that's really the one that people are going to be wanting to interact with. Vive has some interesting things coming out. They just announced their Vive Cosmos. It's kind of secretive. There's something that, people are saying to keep an eye on this. So when you look at what's on the market now, just realize that in 2019, there's things that are coming right around the corner. And then here's an image of Windows mixed reality. So Microsoft does some headsets too, and they're good. My son uses a mixed reality headset from Microsoft, and it's very functional, and it's probably the least expensive out of all of them. And it works really well. So that's not a bad option as well. So where is this all heading? When we talk about virtual reality, well, to be fair, we don't know. But here's some things I want you to notice. So as I'm going to kind of turn the camera to look at Clyde. Where's Clyde at? Right behind me. So these avatars, you see Clyde right there. It's cartoony. It's a little bit 2D. Maybe it's, doesn't seem as advanced. But what they're working on at Oculus is realistic avatars. If you look at the image on the right, that's not a person. That's a digital representation. And one day here in Altspace or whatever platform, we're going to be looking at each other in a hyper-realistic way with skin tones at an eye retina level, and it's going to reflect our actual characteristics. And I think that's amazing. So that's where the technology is heading, this immersive sense where we're going to feel like we're talking to each other as if we were in real life. Now, the current headsets probably couldn't handle that, so let me show you if I can advance this slide. It's not wanting to advance. Let's see what's going on here. Having some issues here. I might have to reload this. Looks like it's stuck in a loop. All right, let me do a quick reload. One second, or maybe I just need to get it. There we go. Just needed to move over just a little bit. There are other headsets that are coming. Now, I don't know if this is coming out this year, but there's a company called Pimax, and they have 8K resolution VR headsets. So the hyper-realistic elements of VR are coming. And I don't know how far it is. Is it a couple years? Is it 5 years? it feels like it's around the corner, but I couldn't tell you when this thing is going to go to another level. But these headsets are going to only get more advanced, more smaller form factor, and maybe even one day, like 10 years from now, it's just a pair of like sunglasses that it would look like. Here's a news article I saw. A Facebook Oculus just patented a Retina resolution VR display. So whatever technologically, whatever display or Retina resolution they have acquired is going to feel like real life. You're going to put your headset on and take it off, and it's going to look the same. And that's where this technology is heading. So one day, on the left is Clive's avatar, and on the right is his real life person. But one day it's going to be the same. Which one is the avatar and which one is the real person? It'll be hard to tell in the near future. And the last thing before I hand it over to Elle is this is just kind of an extra thing about how China has a master plan to lead virtual reality in 2025. Many things that I'm reading are showing that China is going to be the leader of virtual reality. It's going to be like the capital of VR. So much so that even their president has said that VR is an important part of the future of China. And so we were actually there the past couple of weeks. We just flew back in on Tuesday. We went to go check out their VR scene. So in the past couple of weeks, on the top left, those are my sons. We were playing VR like combat. On the right, I was driving a F1 sports car, and in the States, you can run into a VR arcade, maybe a storefront, maybe a kiosk at the mall. But this one was like 7,000 square feet. It looked like took up this whole floor of this mall, and it was some pretty next level stuff. But yeah, those are some fundamentals about getting started hardware wise, and I'd like to hand it over to L.Michelle. So you can present about what you want to, and I'll push the slides for you, Al, whenever you need that.
Now, Elle, I think Elle needs to unmute here. We're going to unmute you in Zoom, so we can't hear you in Zoom, but I'll do that, Elle, so don't worry about that. Here, I'm trying to unmute you, Elle. Oh, hang on. I got you. There you go. Now say something, Elle.
Are we good now?
You're in both. Yes, you're in Zoom and in VR. You're good.
Okay, you can hear me in Zoom, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to just take this out of my ear. Okay, so, which will bring me to my point in this presentation in just a minute. But hey, everybody, thank you, everyone who's in Zoom and who's in the room here in VR, which is a beautiful, beautiful, engaging space. And so kind of like what Clyde said earlier, we are all part of a thought team here in the Mission ARVR community to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening in the immersive space, in virtual reality, and then to also on another end, make sure that with all of this hardware coming out, that we are creating, that we are present on these platforms and in this space. So I thought what would be important to share today would surround finding your place in an immersive space. And I like saying it like that, mostly because it rhymed, but yeah, that's also because it's true. Okay, and so we can go to the next slide there, DJ. So finding your place in an immersive space, which you just saw an example of me trying to balance this. Now, I'm in my home office area now. I'm all set to go in VR and forgot to unmute my mic in the regular digital world. So right now, there are worlds that need us. We are navigating, quite honestly, between four worlds, which is the physical world we live in, which we call IRL, in real life. And then these three other worlds here, the digital world, which is where websites, blogs, forums, anything with a URL exists, like Zoom. So I was trying to make sure I was on in Zoom. Someone had to remind me. Then we have the social world, which I was just on while DJ was presenting, inviting social visitors and fans and those who are socially engaged with us to come on into this space and learn more about what we're saying right now. And now we're telling you more about the immersive world, which is like Altspace, where we are now. Google Street View allows us to immerse ourselves. For Facebook 360. All of these have different purposes. We're going to talk about the immersive world being the place where you are most present. So in my next slide, I'd like to just kind of present an idea as we get you thinking about these practical ways to apply everything we've learned today. The previous worlds that were just discussed have been driven by information sharing for the most part on your websites, in the social world, just sharing information. The immersive worlds are driven by experience. So a lot of times as I started to create in this space, I actually got into VR divinely in 2016. We were at a tech conference in Tallahassee, Florida, and we're really just there to recruit volunteers for some of the projects we were doing in the social media space. And lo and behold, at the table next to us was a company called Covalent Reality that specialized in virtual reality. So my husband goes over and puts on a headset, and all of a sudden he never comes back to our table. And then their table moved, and my husband moved with them. And I said, hello, whose team are you on? You're supposed to be here for us. And he was like, you got to try this. And from that point forward, we realized it was on and just began to pray and ask God, how can we use this for you? And so that's where we are. We'll go on to the next slide. And so even as you're hearing this information, begin to think in your heart and to pray and to ask how not only you can become knowledgeable yourself, but how you can get involved and start really creating. So let's get immersive. First thing we want you to know, DJ went through kind of like the technology eras, but I want you to know that your smartphone is now just the beginning. You remember how we thought, oh man, once we got a smartphone, we were like, man, this is it. We are at the peak of where technology can go. We can do all of these things now. But in virtual reality, in this new immersive space, you have to begin to think about your smartphone is now just the beginning. So you have to begin to think beyond a screen, like a screen as we know it. So a screen as we know it, things stay pretty confined into the area that they're placed in. In virtual reality, it's not confined. It's all around you. So you begin to think of ways to be effective and to experience things beyond just a normal screen. To be comfortable being uncomfortable. Even coming in this, don't let that stop you. I just want to give you some points before we give you some practical suggestions. But be comfortable being uncomfortable. I have on a headset right now. A lot of times when I tell people, hey, come on, try virtual reality, it's like, oh, I don't want that on my head. I don't want to do this. Well, it's kind of like how the cell phones were in the very beginning. They were super large before. I remember my dad had one and we thought he was just the best. He had a bag. It was big. We walked around with our big cell phones. Now, if you walk around with a cell phone like that, people are like, what are you doing? So it's going to be the same thing in the immersive space. We're seeing all these headsets now, but I truly believe that we'll get down to the point where they're like sunglasses, like these Snapchat glasses, like I want to wear, like to wear, and you know, we'll just be able to be, everything around us will come alive. So be comfortable being uncomfortable right now, but just know that means it's just because we're pioneers and we're in the beginning of this. And then start thinking of ways we can experience your world. I mean, all of us do different things. I'm particularly interested in stories of faith and the African American experience. So how can I bring people in to experience my world? That's what we can be thinking of from a ministry standpoint. I think I didn't finish my statement earlier. I said a lot of people ask me, we've created a couple of VR films, and now we're working on a VR blog and future app for storytelling. And many people say, well, how do you know what to do in VR versus what to do just in traditional video? Okay. And I say my rule of thumb is when I want to do something in VR, it's something that I want you to experience, not just observe. It's something that I want you to become a part of. So as you're thinking of ways to share your world, think about it from a standpoint of what we can experience. And so that brings me to my next point here, which is some suggestions. And again, if you've been in VR for a while, you may be like, I already know that. But are you doing all of it? Because as I was writing these things, I was like, hold on, like there are some things that I'm not even doing that are very basic that can be impactful, because we're here not just to have new platforms and technology that we're learning about. We're here to use it for impact. So one suggestion is take a 360 or 3D photo. 360 photo takes a photo of the world entirely around you. Very synonymous, or probably more widely known as a panoramic type of photo. The 3D photos, which are available, which are really portrait mode on places like the iPhone, and many phones have portrait mode, but the iPhone especially allows you to do 3D photos that you can then post on Facebook. Facebook has a 360 page. Go like the page. If you have an iPhone that does the 3D photo function, you can then post those photos on Facebook. And guess what? When we're in Oculus Go and we're going into our immersive browser, we will see your photos come up first. And I was kind of like disappointed because I have Android and my husband just got a new iPhone, I think XR, and it doesn't do the 3D photo function. He was like, I wish I would have known that. I would have gotten another one. So those 3D photos are really popping up as people begin to explore the browsers. And then if you have Facebook 360 and you upload a 360 photo, you can see that as well from any headset. So that's just an immediate way to share your world. You know, thank you for the hearts, where you can share the world around you, share what you experience on the mission field, share your church, you know, where you fellowship, share your neighborhoods, you know, so we can experience them and not just be exposed to them. The second way, create a VR tour. I mean, these things can be simply done now through software that is free. If you research the Google Tour Creator, they recently released their tour creator that they've been using for Google Expeditions, which, by the way, download that app. I should have put it on here. The Google Expedition app has hundreds of VR experiences that will get you acclimated and informed, and just that will get you deeper and deeper into VR. But the very platform they were using to do that, they released it for public free use under the name Google Tour Creator. And you could also download the Google Cardboard Camera app, both free. And the camera app will allow you to take a 360 photo right there. You don't even have to buy the camera. I want to switch back up to on Facebook too. If you go to write a post on Facebook, even now, and you scroll down to the different options, there's an option to take a 360 photo for free that you can begin right then and there creating, okay? As you get a little bit deeper in, maybe you can begin to plan a meeting. If you have an Oculus Go, you can plan it in Oculus Rooms. It comes with your Go headset. It's very easy to do. You can have a few friends in there with you, and you can meet just like we're meeting here in AltSpace. And of course, AltSpace is a great place to do it too. But in Oculus rooms, you can begin to plan a meeting there. Be social. There's YouTube VR, which is amazing to watch videos in VR in a headset. Mm-hmm. There's big screen, where you could gather up to 10 friends and watch a movie together in VR. And one of my personal favorites that you can experience if you have an Oculus product like the Oculus Go is Oculus Venues. We have watched NBA games live, courtside, with friends in VR, just like we're right there, players falling on us and all. So the more you get into it, the more you experience it, the more you'll put yourself kind of in a position to begin creating and impacting. And last but certainly not least, join a VR community. Obviously, we want you to be a part of the Mission ARVR community here. We are going to always continue to host sessions like these and share valuable information. But I also want to bring you a word of comfort as it relates to when you begin to purchase 360 cameras. They usually have a VR community that's associated with that. Mm. Part of the women in VR community. So there are specialized communities that are based on some of your interests that are in VR that will give you all types of tips for creating and, like I like to say, impacting through this new media. And so this is just kind of gives you an idea of how, now that you know about the technology, you can too begin to share your world. You can share your experience. It's one thing if you tell me something, but it's another thing if you take me there. And so we're in an amazing time in life right now where we're able to have people experience what we're saying. And so those are just some of the things that I wanted to leave with you today. And I hope that that's helpful. Thank you.
Wow. Amazing. Awesome. I was applauding you. You couldn't see me because I was behind you, Elle, but I gave you lots of applause. Here are some questions, and I'm just going to go back to the order that they came in. So yes, this recording will be available afterwards. We'll post an executive summary by the end of the day. From Dave Hackett, is VR the fourth paradigm or both VR and AR, DJ?
All right, let me unmute real quick. I think it's combined. People are kind of putting them together and even maybe using the term XR, which is both VR and AR. So you'll see that term kind of popping up more, XR, which includes both. It'd be, I don't know how the technology is going to go. Like 20 years, it could look completely different. But one thing that I would love to see is you'd see both. You would have one glasses that covers AR and VR. I don't know how that seems very hard technically to pull off, but you know, I think that's an amazing thing. So yeah, I think both AR and VR are part of the fourth paradigm.
And so that Windows product you showed, what you said was mixed reality. How is that mixed reality? What does that mean?
I think this is more the term that Microsoft is using for their VR right now. I think they're just trying to get ahead of the terminology and not limiting their offerings to just VR, and they're just using the term mixed reality. But it's right now just VR for them. But they do have the HoloLens. HoloLens 2 is about to come out. So yeah, they're involved in both spheres. They're probably leading the way more in AR. But one thing that's going to be interesting in this whole scene is Apple has something brewing for 2020, and we know whatever Apple does, people gobble up. So that'll be an interesting thing next year to see what VR or AR offering that Apple is going to bring, and that's going to be very significant.
And now this is from Dave. I'll direct this to you, Elle. Don't you think in a few years the bulky headgear will be laughable?
Oh my gosh, it will be totally laughable every time. Well, you know what I'm saying? We'll reflect on it as we'll be able to say, look how far we've come. You know what I mean? I walk around with Snapchat glasses during the day. I love sunglasses anyway, but they record videos. I'm making a documentary with them this year, and it's just so much easier. And all I could think was, I can't wait on a day that you'll have glasses and you'll just put them on and hit a button and enter the room, and the room becomes alive. The room is just programmed. The room has videos that were done in quote unquote VR. The room is just, it's just programmed. You don't even, your furniture, everything. It's just programmed just to your liking. So I do think we're going there. What I'm most excited about is we're getting our foundation now. Because I think the foundational principles are going to take us all the way with this. But it is definitely going to get smaller. They're going to get lighter, more intuitive. It's just, but if we just, all we need to do is just get on the ride now, start creating now, and enjoy all the greater technology that is coming in the next 10 years.
All right, and then Dave asked again, and Dave, I've just put a link in the chat, is there a starter list of Christian VR sites? So I just put in there, Dave, a link to our little starter list, which is more, got a theology, ecclesiology section and network, but no, I don't have like Christian VR sites. So DJ, do you, like, I mean, I'd love to crowdsource that one. Do we have?
You mean like experiences to download?
Yeah, I don't know, Dave. Maybe you can like just any more resources, because I'm an aggregator curator. I know Dave is as well. If we can give people best practices and products.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not. Yeah. I mean, other than our Facebook.
So page. If from the perspective of like when you go to the Oculus store, it's kind of like the App Store for your iPhone or Google Play for your Android. When you go there really isn't much faith-based experiences, spirituality. There's like a handful. A buddy of mine created the Bible in VR, so you could read the Bible in virtual reality. We have virtual reality church, but other than that, and and I don't mean to, like create a controversy, but one of the greatest, the top, like if you said who is the top content creator in VR right now, and I would say it's the porn industry. And and if you ask me who's the least involved content creator in VR, I'd say the church. So I think there's this big disparity of how the church is adopting this technology and how other people are adopting it. It needs to go that way. So there isn't much faith-based spirituality to access in VR, and that's why we need people to get in that space and start creating now.
Good. Yeah, no, good words. Yeah. And then from Dave, where are there communities of Christians imagining various ways we can use this VR world? So I'll say, Dave, I know here's our little community, and I don't know if I'd love to connect with the others if they're out there, but that's kind of why we started, Dave, hey, let's find out who's thinking and practicing in this space, who are the innovators and early adopters, and how can we learn from one another and discover best practices and products. But if you guys know of any others, let me know. Now, Elle, I know that ORU has some kind of a community. Can you comment about that, Elle?
Yes, ORU has a global learning center. So I think it's oru.edu/GLC, or you could just research Global Learning Center at ORU. But it's a more than $1 million facility for just VR research that has equipment, multi-floor type facility. We were there last year for a conference there. But it's kind of like why we talked about the technology today and then the application, because even if you start on the small level, we will begin to make some headway in this space, And so ORU has that, and they just recently, as late last year, graduated a class from their virtual reality school. So they do have a VR school there. You'll find that, should be able to find that on the website. We're working, have a community course for them that we're updating, that I'm gonna have my friend DJ, and Clyde has already helped me with a video contribution to that. So ORU is in that space and moving ahead, but we need a lot more. But I want to tell you that it starts as simply as starting with get yourself a 360 photo going, a 3D photo going. That way, anybody who starts to visit the immersive web in their Oculus Go headset, you'll begin to pop up. That content really does pop up. And then you can look on putting content on YouTube, and then looking into getting your own app and contributing to communities like this. So I think if we just get started, we'll be able to make some headway. I also want to say we're working on our app, Believer, as well, Believe VR.
Nice. Yes. Okay. And then Dave, yes, I asked that one. What are examples of 3D cameras and recommendations? I don't know, let both of you, whoever wants to take a stab at that first.
Yeah, I think Elle has the expertise in that area.
Well, my favorite right now is the Insta360 1X, which is more of a social camera. The reason why I like it, the price point is really good. It's right at $400. You can get some super accessories to go with it for no more than $450. That includes the camera as well. I love that camera because it allows you to capture 5K video. It also captures really dynamic 360 photos. And get this, it's so social. A lot of times people won't come into your immersive world until you invite them socially. So it allows you to create these kind of social pieces that can bring people more so into your immersive pieces. I also love the Views XR camera, which shoots in 360 and 180. I do want to say this, 180 is really gaining some headway, and 180 is just half of 360. So if you go in an immersive environment, you won't be able to see what's behind you, but you'll see everything from a 180-degree perspective. But that is becoming really tremendous in the area of blogging. We're working on a 180 blog right now where you can consume content via YouTube VR. So the Views XR, the Insta360 1X, the Insta brand also has a Pro camera, the Insta Pro 2 that shoots in 8K. It would be tremendous, and it live streams for live streaming, maybe a ministry service or experience. Those are good. The Rika Theta brand is a good brand as well. And so I think I'll just leave it right there. Those are kind of some of my top.
Here's another one from Nathaniel. For the purposes of reaching a wider international community now, are smartphone VR headsets a good tool?
I think it's a good way to get started. There's this more of it's more technically, just the problems with the power of the phone, but it's great. I mean, I tried it. I have friends that come to VR Church that are on their phones, and it works well. So it's not a bad way to get started in VR. But if you're looking for like maybe something more robust, the Quest, the Go, the Rift, that's what I would recommend. And especially the Quest. So even though the Quest hasn't come out yet, I got an opportunity to try in the fall, and it's pretty fantastic. So.
And then this is from Manny. AltSpace is limited to Samsung phones or $200 headset. Do we have smartphone-based cheap VR headsets with similar software as AltSpace VR?
Not that I know of. I don't know, Elle, if you know of any. I don't think there's any social VR, maybe for the cheaper VR headsets.
Not that I know of, unless you just kind of, like we were suggesting, Facebook, but someone who would be running kind of a VR session would have to have a higher end to run like a Facebook Spaces, right, DJ, something like that, and then anyone can view it like this. But I thought that AltSpace you could view it in cardboard. Is that not right? Am I not right about that?
I don't. Well, there is an Android app, so there probably is the potential to use a cardboard-esque element, but I'd have to look at that. Let me go look at their website real quick. If you want to go to the next question, and I can.
All right, yeah. So then I'll take this one. Or go ahead.
I know about the cardboard. That's where I started. I started with a Google Cardboard, simple Google Cardboard, and that was my entry into virtual reality. So
that was my first experience also.
Let's get started.
Yeah, and so I'll say that. I'll say amen to that. Just get started. I mean, I think if there's anything we want to say is just dare, just try, just get started. It'll be clunky, awkward. I had a hard time getting into our practice session yesterday, but you know what? I love what Elle said about, be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because it will be not only comfortable, but it will be normal. Like our new normal in 3 years is going to be way different than we expect it to be. Here's a question from Zakir. What is the purpose of developing technologies? If I understand your intent, I'll take this one. And we're going to wrap up because we have to close here in a few minutes. My angle, and I think this is true for DJ and for Elle as well, is these technologies are not an end in of themselves for our vantage point for the kingdom. They are a means. And so if you have an incarnational perspective of the gospel, then I think we need to incarnate. And that is we need to be where people are. And we need to be where people are in a way that is redemptive, where it's reflecting and revealing the beauty and the nature and the truth and the power of the kingdom. And if we're not doing that in geographical spaces, then we're not following Jesus' command to go and make disciples of all nations. But if we're not doing that in the digital domains in which people are increasingly spending extraordinary amounts of time, and I'll sort of reckon, there's the digital world and the social world, now there's this immersive world. If we're not in those places, we are not, in my opinion, fulfilling the command that Jesus gave us to go and make disciples of all nations, which I think now, we can extend to all places. And that's, again, the real world, the digital world, the social world, and the immersive world. Oh, gosh, we're out of time. DJ, can you give a 20-second answer? Do we shoot for cardboard level VR or shoot for the high entry level advanced VR? I don't know. Do you have 20 seconds on that, DJ or somebody?
Yeah, I think I guess it just depends. If you're creating if you're creating a game, if you want to go high end for more immersive, I think social, like Altspace here, is doing a great philosophy of being mobile first, so that it works well on the go. It's going to work well on the Quest. So I think it just depends on your project, on your app, on what you're trying to go for. Some studios want the most hyper realistic space simulator they can make, and Altspace is no, let's get this mobile. So,
all right.
But I'm a big fan of the mobile first philosophy.
All right.
But
okay, here's another question. This is from Julian about where the people are. Are there any stats about current VR numbers, like globally, nationally? Do either of you have that? I don't know.
I have older numbers, but you might have some. I know, like for instance, PlayStation VR, they just came out with some like 4 million adopted for just the PS VR. But with Oculus and HTC, I have to get some updated numbers on it. That's a good question.
All right.
Yeah, we'll have to get the updated
overall,
numbers.
2019 is a big year for adoption.
All right. Well, we are out of time, so I'm going to wrap us up. Thanks to everyone who participated. There were up to 15 of us in the Zoom, and then I think 6 of us here in VR. So I have to give a shout out to Dr. Tom Custer there in the blue in VR. Love you, brother. Great to see you. You know what? He can't hear me. I am muted myself. You can hear me in VR.
Yeah.
Yes, I am unmuted. Okay, wasn't certain. We're going to send out an executive summary. We've recorded. We're going to push that out. We'll send you a summary email that gives you the link to that. Actually, it will. If in the future, a shortened URL will be visualstory.org/VR start, but you'll get an email, so you don't have to worry about that. And we'll send that out. We'll kind of keep you up to speed. We'll push out some communications. We do encourage you to join the Facebook group. You go to Mission ARVR in Facebook. You just have to request, and one of us can let you in. And I don't know, we've got I can't remember how many people we have, but that's a place where some of us connect. And that's all I have for now. So we are looking for time. I'm going to give thanks, Lord Jesus. Thank you for this time, for these people. Help us as your people to live, love, and incarnate well, and especially in this virtual reality world. We love you and bless you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So thanks to all. I think we'll say sayonara for now, and I'm going to ask our team, Carissa and Elle and DJ, we'll stop this Zoom room, but